I can see that we have present today Councillors Buchanan, Dewar, Equi. I have apologies from Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Gowland? I'm not seeing you present. Councillor Keat? Oh, I can see that you have joined, Councillor Keat. Also present today are Councillors Lockhart and Mars and Councillor Nugent. We have a number of officers in attendance, and I'll pass back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. I'll move straight on to item 1. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any hands, so I'll take that as a no. So moving on to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 6. So that's the meeting of the 12th of September. Could we agree them as a true and accurate record, please?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any matters arising? Councillor Equi.
Sorry, thanks, Chair. It was just a quick one. Obviously, I wasn't in attendance at the last meeting, so apologies for that because I was on my honeymoon. But I don't know if this has actually already been covered. I just wanted to, so that it wasn't something that was brought up for every part of or every section of the papers. See, to do with the climate change, the sustainability and the environmental impacts that we've got. Usually it's like number 7 or 8 or whatever, it's before the financial impacts. See for any changes that are reflected in any of the papers, is that, I'm losing my words today. What I mean is that there's nothing about any changes in any carbon footprints. So should that be noted in there, or is it a policy that, sorry, my cat is getting involved here. Sorry, has there already been a decision made when I was say off ill that wasn't going to change at this committee, so there would be no reflection because it's already covered at other committees where papers are passed and then basically reports come here for the financials. If I haven't been clear, I will please ask me questions so that I know that I know that you understand, because that was totally convoluted. So apologies, Chair.
I think I understand the point you're making. My understanding is that this forum would only consider the financial resources scrutiny, so the financial aspects of it. However, the climate impact would be considered in each report for the other places that those would be considered for committees. But could I ask Lorraine to confirm that, please?
Hi, good afternoon, members. Yes, thanks for your question. And I would agree with what you've said, Councillor Mars, in terms of the papers are coming here for scrutiny, but they've also been to other places previously. That doesn't detract from the fact that we do make mention of the climate change and sustainability in all of the papers. And if there was anything, for example, in the report that went to Executive Committee, we would reiterate that here. What I would say, though, is that, and I think I maybe mentioned this the first time round, I think, Councillor Equi, when you had mentioned it before, that the capital programme and the revenue budget are both equality impact assessment, sustainability impact assessment and Fairer Scotland duty assessed before the programme set for the current year. So only if there's any substantive changes to the programme as we see it would we bring something else to members' attention. And that would be for something, maybe a whole new project that's coming into play, or a real change in policy that we would highlight that specifically. So that might be another committee report that's gone to another committee, and they would take account of all of that information at that point, and then we would add into the capital programme or the revenue budget as appropriate. So it's probably a combination of both of the things that you suggested. I hope that helps.
No, Chair, through the Chair, yes, it does, Lorraine, and I greatly appreciate it. And I knew that it was something that I had brought up before, but I couldn't remember what the answer was. So apologies, because I didn't see it in the minutes, but it wasn't the biggest deal anyway, to be honest with you. And I know that we don't go in to absolute finite detail anyway. I just didn't want to not be doing my job. So, Chair, Thank you for your indulgence, Lorraine. That was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so that is a good clarity to have. Thank you. So moving on to item 3A, which is the Capital Budget Monitoring 2024-25, the General Fund Capital Programme, pages 7 to 24. Could I ask Lorraine to speak to that, please?
Thank you. So the first paper then, as you said, Chair, is the General Fund Capital Programme. So section 4 details the programme as 87.007 million, and the details of that are in the appendix, which we'll cover in a second. That programme has been revised since we last came to the forum by 51,000 because of some amendments to the programme, and again I'll pick them up in a second. And then noting just that the programme funding is also 87.007. Spend to the 9th of August is, I've lost my train of thought, 11.296 million, apologies. And we are still forecasting full spend for the year at the moment, but we are doing a bit of a deeper dive into some of the more substantive projects in terms of the build side, and we'll bring them to members' attention if there's any outcome from that review. So in terms of adjustments to the programme, those are noted in Appendix A, which is on page 9 of your papers. We've brought in spend on the Hamilton Town Centre Master Plan that has been agreed as to be funded by the Hamilton Common Good Fund. That was agreed at Finance and Corporate Resources Committee. So we're bringing it into the capital programme for monitoring purposes. And then we're reducing the programme by 40,000 for electric vehicle expansion, and that's really just a change in how the funding's coming. So the project's still taking place, but it's been given to Glasgow City Council as the lead authority. So my understanding is the project still takes place, it just doesn't come via us, it'll just go straight to Glasgow. So overall, that's reducing our programme by 51,000 there. Appendix B notes the movement then in the programme of that 51, and then Appendix C on page 11 just gives you the detail across the individual services, showing you the total programme for the year, the forecast as it stands at the moment, and then 11,296 at the bottom right hand corner being the actual spend to the 9th of August. Page 12 there, Appendix D, shows you the funding package that supports the capital programme and notes that at this point in the year we've got 51.662 million, and that's because we make an assumption on our potential borrowing levels, and we also take account of any of the grant income that we've already received in the bank. And that's the end of the financial part. If I can hand over to Derek for the build side. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Thanks, Chair. If I can take members to page 13, Appendix E, and that's the build executive summary. There are no projects behind programme to report at the 9th of August. Moving over a couple of pages to page 15, the non-build executive summary shows that there's also no projects behind programme to report as of the 9th of August. And then moving forward to page 17, the roads executive summary also shows that there are no projects behind programme at the 9th of August. And that's the operational report, Chair.
Thank you, Lorraine and Derek. Are there any questions or comments on this report? I'm seeing no hands, so thank you. Could we agree the report?
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 3B, which is the Capital Budget Monitoring 24-25, the Housing Capital Programme, pages 25 to 30 of your pack. Lorraine, if I could ask you to speak to that, and Derek afterwards, of course.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the Housing Capital Programme to the same position in the year, the 9th of August. So Section 4 notes the programme of 77.248 million, and the programme funding is also noted as 77.248 million. And the forecast for the year is full spend. At the moment, again, we're halfway through the year now, so we are looking at all the projects as we go through and doing a bit of a deeper dive in terms of all of the projects to make sure that what we're forecasting here is the best position that we have available. And if there's any changes in that, obviously we bring that to members. As at the 9th of August, we're looking at actual funding of 15.503 in the bank at the moment. In In terms of, spend actually to date, and in terms of funding, we're balancing that off with the 15,503. And you can see that in Appendix A, which is on page 27. So the top line there shows 15,503 of spend, and down the bottom in terms of your total funding, 15,503 of funding to date. And that takes us on to the build side. Thanks.
Taking members now, Chair, to page 28, and that's the build executive summary for the Housing Capital Programme. We're showing one project behind programme at the 9th of August. And if we go over the page to page 29, it explains that Welbeck House, Muse, Stewart Street and East Kilbride, the internal upgrade project is slightly behind where we expected it to be, and we're awaiting to appoint a subcontractor to almost finish that project, but it'll be done in the next month or two. So no concerns there about spend within the year, Chair.
Thank you, Lorraine and Derek. Are there any questions or comments on that report? I'm seeing no hands, so thank you. If we could agree the report, please.
Agreed.
Chair.
Thank you. If we move on to item 4, which is the revenue budget monitoring, 24-25, pages 31 to 36 of your pack. Lorraine, if I could ask you to speak to that.
Thanks again, Chair. So this is the revenue budget to the 9th of August, and section 4 is the substantive part of the report. So the first line there just explains that at the moment we are forecasting a break-even position for our current year budget. Section 4.3 gives us, or onwards from section 4.3, gives us a bit of detail on a couple of key budget areas that we've touched on previously. So the first one is teacher numbers. And that's really referring to the holdback of government grant in relation to the number of teachers that we have. We're noting there, just in terms of the Scottish Government discussions that I was at, and they're quite willing to listen to our mitigations in terms of specific examples across councils, but with ourselves as well, in relation to the position on teacher numbers. And that discussion will take place again once we provide the information on the teacher number census data, and we won't get any feedback on that until December. So that is a risk area, and we've got a couple of weeks to wait until we finalise the census, and then obviously get the feedback from the government in December time. In terms of employer pension contributions, increases for teachers, again, we're noting that as a risk area. The pension increase has taken place as at the start of April, and we do have an estimated cost there. We're noting it as a risk, but that said, the Scottish Government have agreed to pass funds over to councils when they get it from the UK Government. In terms of the appendices then, Appendix 1 shows you the position. In the greyed out box, it's explaining that we have a break-even position as forecast for the year, and the right-hand column there is showing the actual spend and income for the year to date. So it does look like we've got a net surplus position there, but again, this is timing only. And it's just at this point in the year, and it just depends on the timing of the income and the spend, which are not in sync until we get to the end of the financial year. Appendix 2 gives you the housing revenue account then, again showing a break-even position and as a forecast for the year, and no variances to note at this point. And again, on the right-hand side is showing a year-to-date actual in terms of spend and income, and it's balanced off by any transfers to or from the balance sheet as required. So there's nothing to highlight there to members at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions or comments on that report? I'm seeing no hands. Could we agree the report, please?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, which is the revenue budget monitoring 24-25 detailed resource analysis, pages 37 to 86. If I could ask Graham to speak to that report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. This is the normal revenue budget report for 24-25, as you've explained, gives the detailed resource analysis, again for the period to the 9th August, and there's, as normal, as an executive summary showing the top level position, the most significant variance across the subjective headings, and also the line-by-line trend analysis. So if I take members to Appendix A on page 39 for community and enterprise resources, and you'll see that there's a break-even position there in the third column along, just in terms of grade out overall for the resource, but some variances across each of the services. And the explanations are in pages 40 to 44 with underlined variances since the last report. and the trends with the detail are in pages 45 to 47, and happy to take any questions specifically on community and enterprise resources.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on that portion of the report? Councillor Equi.
Hi, Julia, I don't have the papers printed, so I'm just going to switch over to it just so that I get to the right bit. Okay, it was page 40. I just had a question, and it was about the overtime, basically under the employee costs, and it was for 434,000. And it does give, you know, an explanation that the overtime overspend is predicted mainly with grounds and due to vehicle checks and verge maintenance and weekend work at cemeteries and golf courses. But what I wanted to ask was, is that going to be something that's going to be an ongoing figure? Because we're paying overtime rather than, and I don't have anything against overtime, because I think it definitely, in a cost of living crisis, we want people to be able to work overtime if they want, but it's more a case of, is there have we got a recruitment problem that we can't recruit people to actually do the job, so that people are if they don't want to work over with their hours, that they can actually just do that job. And so I just wanted to know why the figure was so high, it is explained why, but is that going to be ongoing? Sorry, that's my cat. I'm so sorry. Is it going to be ongoing, or is that a one-off figure? You know, that actually we've got people that are getting employed, therefore that's not going to be an overtime figure, then something that's over for, the next time that we come back?
I'm happy to take that, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Councillor, I think it's probably a combination of all of the things you suggested. You can see in some of the detail there that some of it is because of staff absences or vacancies, staff turnover and covering staff turnover, and also some elements of winter maintenance. So, for example, if winter maintenance comes into play, then the resource doesn't necessarily have the budget for it, but they do have some budget for winter maintenance, but we also have a winter maintenance fund which helps top that up. So it could be a combination of 2 or 3 different things. It's not necessarily that we're assuming we will incur overtime. I think the figure is quite sensational, but I think there's a number of reasons behind that. We don't necessarily, we wouldn't show an overtime overspend, for example, for work that we expect to take place at weekend, because we do have an overtime budget. So unless people are actually contracted to work over the weekend, then they would be paid potentially at an overtime rate. You've also got instances where you're covering additional hours for people. So you've maybe got a part-time member of staff who's been asked to work full-time hours to cover these staff vacancies or staff turnover elsewhere. So I think it can be a combination of a number of things. I can't tell you it's a one-off, because I don't think it will be. I think there'll be lots of moving parts in terms of the variance explanation. But I imagine that year on year, the explanations could be different, if that makes sense.
No, that's fine. Sorry, through the chair. That's fine, Lorraine, and thank you. And I think it's just one for us all to keep an eye on, so that if it's coming up regularly, then it was something that we would then need to investigate further. But that's great, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If we could move on to the next section of the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The next section is, if I turn attention to Appendix B on page 49, and that shows the position for education resources, and again showing a break-even position overall projected for the resource, and spend today of just over £155 million. Again, the explanations are in pages 50 to 52, and the underlying variances since the last report, just in terms of noting a couple there, and the trends on pages 53 to 55. And again, happily to take any questions on this area specifically within the report.
Thank you, Graham. Are there any questions or comments for this section? Thank you, Councillor Equi.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. It was just to ask about the school transport. So I know it's a contentious subject, but I just wanted to ask about it in relation to this paper. It says that because of the increased costs, then it's more of an amount. And what I don't understand about that is that why would we not, when we knew that there was more money that was required for the buses, why would we not just have put that into the budget so it wouldn't actually be a figure that's over? So I don't understand why it's reflected as being over when I thought that was something that would have been taken into account, because why would we not have updated the figure?
Are you able to advise, Graham?
Chair, if I can just come on with that one. I think there's probably an element of timing as well in terms of when we set the budget for the current year, and when we get advised of the position in terms of the school transport costs for the current or the new school year, if you like. So that there's an element of that. We're also noting there that is demand-led as well, so it's volume as well as cost, although I do appreciate, I think the more significant part is in relation to the increased costs themselves. But we are working with education in terms of looking at what options we've got to try and manage the budget as best we can in the current year, to try and prevent any overspends for the resource. And we'll be looking at that over the next couple of months, looking to see what other monies are available within education in terms of the budget strategy and how we can deal with that over the next few months to the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Lorraine. Chair, can I ask one other question, please? That was obviously to do with page 50. This one's to do with page 51. And hold on just quickly to get it. Okay, 51. It was to do with independent school places. So again, that's like £350,000 over. And just for drawing it to MD's attention, it just says this project overspend reflects the increased cost of placements for people with additional support needs in independent schools and is due to both an increase in the number of places and the cost of placements. I obviously, because I've just been returning to council, is this, it seems like an awful lot of money. I know that it's been brought up before. Is that not something that we need to address? Because, why are we not looking after our own kids with additional support needs, here in South Lanarkshire? Because I'm just thinking, all it does is it just increases the cost of money that spends on transport to take them out with the authority. And then there's like the upset for the children if they've got to be, in transport for, a longer, period of time. And it's also that, they're away from their families as well. So could I have an answer to that as well, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to come back on it. In terms of the overspend specifically, of noting there anticipated for 350,000 for the year. If you go down to income, just in terms of the fees and charges, we're noting there in terms of the over-recovery income that we're getting from other local authorities for children attending schools. So the over-recovery there in terms of the 800,000 has been used to offset or more than offset the budget within the independent school places. In terms of the requirement for those places within independent schools, I guess that would come down to individual circumstances of children, and where education's here the best place for those children to be. But in terms of the overspend, as I say, it's been managed in totality in terms of where we also have children within our authorities, and we're getting an income in from them. So yeah, we could look at, as I say, potential of a future realignment of budget there around that, but that's how that overspend at the moment is being met.
Thank you, Chair. Just one further thing, please, is just to say that I'm sure for the other councillors that are on this committee, that something that we could all think about is the fact that, yes, that this might be the best, money-wise, that if we ship the children out, then we can ship other children in, and it offsets the budget. All I'm thinking about is children with additional support needs that are going to have to be away from their families, leave early in the morning to get to school. There's added transport costs, and it's like, I think what we should be thinking about is what's best for the children and their families, because it's difficult enough. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I hope that did answer your question. I suspect just from my own knowledge that those educational places are not just day cases and will include some residential cases as well. But you know, I think we would all share your concern that the best outcome for young people is found, and it's obviously at significant cost. Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? No, thank you. If I could move on to the next section of the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The next section is Appendix C on page 59 for Finance and Corporate Resources. And again, there's some variances within services, but overall showing a projected break-even position overall for the resource and spent to date of, as I say, £20.6 million. Again, the explanations are on pages 60 and 61, and we do have again some underlined variances which are new from last time, with the specific trends detail on page 62 to 63. And again, happy to take any questions on this specific section.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Equi.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just going to flick over to it. I think it was page 60. Yeah, it was. It was the grants to voluntary organisations. It says that we've not handed out, so we're under 132,000. And it just said the project underspend reflects the current demands for admin grants. Could somebody explain to me like why that is the case? I know it basically like says that it's to do with admin, legal and licensing.
Hi, Councillor. Yeah, the grants to voluntary organisations sits within Ian Strachan's budget. So that's within the admin world of admin, legal and licensing. The projected underspend at the moment is just based on the current demand that we've experienced this year. We have had underspends in the last couple of years, and we are looking at that as part of the overall review exercise that had to be undertaken, because we had delayed a saving in grants that was approved for 2024-25, but it was delayed as part of the budget motion or the amendment that was put forward back in February. So we need to look again to make sure that we are managing that budget as we move into 2025-26. And as I say, we have experienced underspends in recent years just because of demand. So at the moment, we're reflecting that 132 under, but that's just because of where we're at this point in the year.
Chair, can I ask another question, please?
Of course.
Lorraine, thanks for that. What I wanted to ask was, so for that underspend, okay, what are we doing to actually let the community groups know that that money is there and it is available to them, so that basically, you know, it's been used? Because it's all very well, you know, us as councillors saying, oh, you know, let's do this pot of money, you know, that help the community. But if we're not actually telling the community about it, then how do they know to use it? So in what way have we been promoting this money to the community organisations and charities for them to be able to apply for it?
I'm not that close to that, councillor, so I'd have to take that away and come back to you in terms of the publicity side of things. I can certainly speak to Ian and his team and get a bit of feedback for you on that, if that's okay.
Chair, that would be lovely, and maybe they could actually, you know, like come and speak to it and actually explain to us like what is happening. I'm just dead aware that this is such an important committee because it's like the final, you know, sign off of everything, and all the councillors that are on this committee aren't necessarily going to be on the other committees. So I just think it's really important. I'm just thinking, you know, Christmas is around the corner. Community groups and charities are going to be like, you know, looking for money, and it's like we need to make sure that if it's the difference between somebody getting Christmas lights switched on or whatever, you know, that there is actually like an availability of money, you know, for them, rather than it just not getting used and then it just gets shelved and gets put somewhere else because it's like, oh, nobody needed that money, but it's because we haven't actually advertised it.
Yep, no, I'll find out about the advertising, absolutely. Whether or not Ian would be coming along to this committee, I don't know. there's something in the back of my mind that I don't know if some of the area committees are involved in the allocation of these monies. So I'd need to get a bit more information on that in terms of where those area committees are at and what they do and what their responsibility is in terms of what the terms of references are. But I can certainly investigate that for you and come back to you. What I would say is in previous years we have set the money aside. We haven't lost it necessarily, and we're looking at that bigger picture, as I say, as part of the process of looking at the grants moving forward.
Chair, thank you very much. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could concur that if a full breakdown of the monies and where the type of grant that is involved in that subject line, and the limitations or that have been experienced in terms of delivering that to voluntary groups, could be brought to the next meeting. Would you be happy with that, Councillor Equi?
Yes, please. I think that would be really helpful for all of us, Julia. So is it something we need to do formally, or is it because you're chair, you can just say that's what we want?
Well, I'd be happy for that to happen. I think that I'm not sure we need a formal motion, because certainly I'm in agreement if we could have that information brought to the next forum. Thank you. If we could move, if there are no further questions or comments, I don't see any further hands. If we could move on to the next section of the report, please, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. The next section is Appendix D on page 65, and that covers housing and technical resources. Again, we're showing a break-even position bottom line, although an underspend and overspend within the two services, and spend to date of just under £15 million. On pages 66 to 68, again, we have the variance explanations and the underlined variances for the new ones from when we came last time, and the trends are on pages 69 to 71. Again, happy to take any specific questions on this section for housing and technical resources.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Equi.
Hi, thanks, Chair. It was just one question, and it was just so that I understood it. See on page 66, see when it says the other accommodation and it's housing services, and it says the overspend relates to an increase in homeless stock expenditure. Could it just be confirmed to me that that's because we've purchased like more places, so that they're you know, whether it's ex-council stock or whatever, so that we've got it to like try and combat our housing list with regards to the homeless?
Yeah, it'll be mainly leasing costs, is it, in terms of lease for the homelessness stock, but then yeah, obviously you've got your furniture in terms of, you know, equipment, etc. for things within that as well, but the overall within the other accommodation will be the leasing costs, and yeah, that's exactly it for the to, you know, try and combat the level of homelessness we've got with the increase in the number of properties we have available.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions, any further questions or comments? I'm seeing no hands. If we could move on to the next section of the report, please.
That is on page 73, and again, related to housing and technical, this time for the HRA, but there are no specific variances to report within the HRA. Overall, it's break even, and we're working on a business plan for this financial year and moving into 2025-26. So for future reports, as I say, we will start to see the information against the current budget coming through against that. And on pages 74 to 75, we have the individual breakdown of the budgets.
Thank you, Graham. Are there any questions or comments? I'm seeing no. Please.
Julia, sorry, I lost you there. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's in relation to page 78. I was just looking for clarity. See, when it comes to the managerial support specialist staff, and it's talking about, obviously it's like nearly 2 million over. I just wanted somebody to explain to me with regards to the overspend. So when it's the performance and support and it's like 67k over, which is a big figure, but not in relation to that figure. It just says this overspend as a result of turnover being less than anticipated to date. If somebody could explain that to me. And the other one was, hold on 2 wee seconds. And I guess it just goes for any of those ones, to be honest, that aren't very clear. Like, so when it's the adult and older people, it just says this is a result of vacancies. Totally get that. That's fine. Again, justice to do with vacancies, totally get it. But see, for the other ones that are not to do with the vacancies, could somebody just explain to me so that we know that that isn't going to be something that's going to be over each time that there's a, I know there is a reason for it, but so that it actually explains what the reason is, because for Joe Bloggs looking at this, when it's the performance and sport, and it just says this overspend is a result of turnover being less than anticipated to date. And it's like, well, that's great. Well, why is that? Why did that happen? What is it that's happening so that that doesn't happen next time? It's just basically so that there's like clarity.
Are you able to advise, Graham?
Yeah, happy to pick up on that. As I say, yeah, this section's relating to the last section, sorry, social work. I know there was a bit of a break up there just in terms of where we'd got to. So yeah, this was the, no problem, just in terms of the last section on social work for pages 77 on to 85. So yes, picking up specifically on the employee costs. Yeah, you're right. As I say, there are a lot of ups and downs here just in terms of, so the underspend ones, they are in terms of, yeah, vacancies which are mainly in the process of being filled. And the big one that you mentioned in terms of the managerial support, in terms of the overspend there, that is to do with the turnover set and then specific overtime. But on the performance and support where it's just mentioned turnover, essentially at the start of the year, we will put in, estimate a level of turnover in order to manage the budget within the year. So essentially what we're saying is that there's not been as much turnover of staff anticipated. So you know, you're relying, I suppose, within the overall budget of a level of staff leaving and new staff coming in within that. And as I say, at this point in time, because all posts are essentially filled to an extent, then you're anticipating an overspend if that trend were to continue up until the end of the financial year. But that will continue to be monitored. And as I say, in overall terms, there is obviously a big underspend within social work because of the number of vacancies that are in the process of being filled, but each service does have its own turnover requirements to meet as well. And for the smaller service in terms of performance and support and justice, that's where you're seeing an overspend coming through there in terms of just in that level of turnover at the moment, not quite in terms of on target with the budget, which I think was set at around about 3%.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there may have been a slight misunderstanding on the section you were speaking to. Is there any further comment that you wish to make, Graham, on this section of the report?
I don't think so, no. As I say, this was just this was for social work, and again, just the underlying trends. But again, on page 77, you do have the summary position there, and we are reporting an overall break-even position, as I say, across our non-delegated services and also our adult and older people service, which is delegated to the IGIB. So no, I'm happy to take any further questions.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments on this section of the report? I'm seeing no hands, so if we could now agree the entire item 5, which is the revenue budget monitoring 24-25 as a whole.
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, I have no urgent business, so thank you very much for your attendance and your comments and questions, and I'll declare this meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.